He is an amazing frontman, singer-songwriter for one of the best bands to come out of Australia during the 1980s called Men at Work. Plus, he continues to have an incredible solo career, having just released a brand new solo album titled Fierce Mercy. He's also got a few Southern California dates on the map for this month. The great Colin Hay. Colin, it's so great to have you on the show today, my friend.
Thank you.
Now, Colin, I know you're originally born in Scotland and immigrated to Australia with your family at around the age of 14. Now, I know you were only 14 years old, but what was your musical influence like coming from Scotland to Australia?
My main influence with music was before I went to Australia, actually, because my mother and father had a music shop in Scotland between the years of 1958 and 1967. And during that time, there was some extraordinary music got made, as you well know. And when I went to Australia, it was interesting because Sgt. Pepper had just been released. So they were the two most exciting things that happened to me in 1967 was that Sgt. Pepper's got released, and also I moved to Australia. And I discovered that there was a pretty strong local scene in Australia. So there was lots of Australian music as well. And there was lots of music which actually, took from American influence, took from British influence. But it was definitely a kind of an Australian flavor to everything that got produced.
And Colin, how did you meet up with the guys who would soon become Men at Work?
I met Gregory first, Greg Ham. I met in 1972 through a mutual friend, and I was still at school, and I'd known Greg for long time. I met Jerry Spicer, the drummer, through the same mutual friend, actually, a guy called Kim Gingell, a great actor in Australia. And I ran into Ron, who was the guitar player in the band, in a place in Melbourne in 1977. And I was about to go and be part of a musical called Ned Kelly. So I said to Ron, when I come back from this musical, we should work together. And he said, okay. So we did that, and we were a duo for a while, and then Jerry's joined us, and so that became three, and then I asked Greg to join us, and he did, and Ron switched to guitar, and we got this other guy, John Reese, who was a friend of Jerry's in the band. So in the course of about 2 or 3 months, the band, as people associate with Men at Work, was formed.
In January of 1983, Men at Work were the first Australian artists to have a simultaneous #1 album and #1 single with the tune Who Can It Be Now? And you were in southern New South Wales when you wrote that tune, correct?
Yeah, I was. My girlfriend at the time, Linda, and I had some land in southern New South Wales that, she really had the money. She was a school teacher. She was the one that had a job. I was just I was basically struggling at that time. We bought this 55-acre property for like tuppence, cost about $9,000 or something.
Wow.
And we built this little tree house, and we were up there one summer, and I think it was around 78 or something, and 79. And I wrote this little tune in about 40 minutes, and she said, that'll be your first hit record. And I said, really? She said, yeah, that's a good song. That. She obviously had some kind of instinct and insight that I did not.
And Colin, I overheard that Ron kind of co-wrote the tune Down Under by using some water bottles which were filled at different levels of water to get some different notes, and along with that great little bass riff that he put together. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I think it's more of a personal song for you.
Well, I think that perhaps lyrically it was, because I wrote the lyrics as well as the chordal structure and so forth. But it felt like a band song. It felt like our song. It felt like Ron's and my song, because he really had the spirit of the music of the song really came from him. It wasn't really to do with something as narrow as the economy. It had to do with just the uniqueness of Australia and what I sensed was happening to it, which was becoming more like every other place on the planet, and in so doing was losing a lot of the specialness of the place, and indeed, being an old tree hugger from way back, it was old growth forests were being cut down for short-term gains, and there was desecration of coastal lands and so forth, and I just felt like it was becoming overdeveloped. And so, but I'm an old hippie, so that's really where that came from. And I was aware of the fact of the greed of real estate developers and so forth, and indeed I still am. I still have basically the same feelings, and so I think a lot of those things were borne out, indeed, with what happened in the late '80s and so forth, when people indeed got very, very greedy, and it all came tumbling down.
And Colin, I got to tell you, man, growing up here in Southern California, one of my favorite studio albums when I was a kid was Business as Usual, and I heard that it spent 15 straight weeks at #1 on the American album charts, and one of my personal favorite albums growing up. And one of my favorite tunes off that album has got to be Be Good Johnny, and you wrote that tune with Greg, correct?
Well, we got to the rehearsal early. We got to the rehearsal room before everybody else. We were just messing around with an idea. I can't remember whether it was Greg or myself. Greg was messing around with a little kind of chordal jab that he was messing around with, and I was doing this, Pete Townsend-like kind of rhythmic thing on the guitar, which I kind of was trying to get a handle on, and we just decided that we would try and write a song from the standpoint of a 9-year-old boy, because everyone can relate to not being able to relate with their elders. So we thought it was a good subject for a song.
And the first single off the album, Cargo, was the great classic Overkill, and I kind of perceived that was another personal song for you, kind of explaining what you guys were going through at that time?
No, I didn't really have anything to do with the group. It was really a personal statement. That I think that song really was the fact that I felt that. I think that I didn't really know what the song was about at the time. I just wrote the song, and it had some interesting chordal movements, and I think the lyrics had some interest to them and some depth. But I wasn't really quite sure what it was. But I think in retrospect, there was a feeling that I had that nothing was going to be the same again. We were diving into the unknown because of the fact that we were no longer anonymous, and I think there was also some kind of idea about my own struggle, because I sensed that I was dancing with addiction, and it was getting the better of me even then.
And what was that experience like working with producer Peter McKeon on the great tune Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive?
McKeon is a very good record producer, and he was perfect for us in a way, because we had limited experience in the studio, and he knew what he was doing. He had something very strong to work with. He had a band that could play well and had good songs and could perform well together. So in a lot of ways, he could really just shape the sound of that, and he did that, I think, very well.
And Colin, how did you get the inspiration for the great tune "It's a Mistake"?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick, and he directed Dr. Strangelove, and I'm a huge fan of Peter Sellers as well. So that was I'd seen that film many times, and which was about that very subject, and it struck me that at that particular time it was very possible that we were going to have some kind of the possibility of a nuclear accident was there, at that particular time, and indeed, as you well know, is still there.
I know you've had an incredible, amazing solo career, and I understand that you just released your new album, Fierce Mercy. And tell me about that album and the new track, Secret Love.
Well, I've really been on I was in Men at Work for like 4 years, and I've been on my own for about 35 years now. So I really feel like I've been on my own for a long time, and I keep making records, and I think the records get better. And I think this is Fierce Mercy is the best record that I've ever made. I'm very proud of it, and I think that Secret Love is a song which I wrote sitting around here at home. It's very Roy Orbison inspired, or Gene Pitney, Righteous Brothers, a lot of acts like that I listened to when I was growing up and loved the drama of the sound and the Spectre production. Just that American sound that you really couldn't seem to get anywhere else. So that was my Secret Love. Really is my attempt at one of those kinds of songs.
And Colin, I noticed that you're going to be on tour this month in Southern California. Now, are you just concentrating on the new studio album and tour, or what else do you have coming up?
I'm on the road the whole year. I'm on the road with a band in Southern California, and I've been living here for like almost 30 years. I'm on the road in Southern California, and then I'm on the road all over the country, but I'm always on the road all over the country.
Right.
So I'm out in support of this record, yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're in Los Angeles right now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Colin Hay is going to be performing live at the Belly Up Tavern in Solana Beach on July 19th and the 20th. Plus, see Colin Hay live at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano on July 21st. For more information, visit colinhay.com. Mr. Colin Hay of Men at Work, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Nice to talk to you.